Hello and welcome to another Tinto map review. This time, of course, as you can see on your screen, we are looking at Egypt and the Levant. And just immediately the biggest thing that jumps out for me is the addition of various vassals instead of the Mamluks just owning all of this land directly. And I think that is essentially just a really good thing. I'm not a massive fan of what we're seeing over here, where the Mamluk's name is just sitting there because it's split off by these corridors. Maybe that could be looked at. If I'm completely surrounding a corridor, I don't need my name again. But either way, let's first of all ask you to subscribe to my channel, because of course I need to do the whole shilling thing for YouTube. But with that out of the way, let's jump in and see what we are getting with the Tinto map review for Egypt and the Levant. Also, December, happy month for map lovers. We'll have so many Tinto maps in a row. That includes reviews, I would imagine. Because we obviously have had the Russia one. Maybe we're going to get one next week. I don't know. But let's have a look firstly at the list of changes. Apparently there is not so many as other times. After reading the feedback, they thought the region was in a pretty decent situation. That's honestly not the sentiment that I was reading from people. There was really one big thing that I'd noticed people complaining about, and that is the lack of granularity. They wanted more locations in Egypt, because as it stands right now, I think even with adding 21 locations, I think it's got about as many, or it's got the same density at least, or a lower density than the island of Ireland, which I would argue is a less important or less pivotal, less key location for this time period. And I don't know, I feel like that's maybe this could have a few more than 21. Though I will say El Alamein being added as one of those locations kind of makes up for it. But yeah, 21 new locations, some 9 new lakes, and some wastelands have been divided into more pieces. There's 5 new tags, those vassals that we had just mentioned, a bunch of new characters, some dynamic names, some renames, cultures. This is another thing that I'd seen people complaining about, or rather there was one specific thread, and that was essentially somebody, I believe they were Saidi, or they were a different culture within Egypt. And they had basically said that when you have two cultures in Egypt, you name one of them Egyptian and one of them something else, that something else, it's kind of insulting to that culture. It kind of feels like you're saying that they are not Egyptian. And his point was, Saidi are Egyptian, they're just a different type of Egyptian to what you are calling Egyptian. So that's been changed now, and that is to Lower and Upper Egyptian. And to kind of bring this into a point that I kind of want to make about England when that Tinto map review comes along, this is very relevant, because in one of the recent Tinto talks, the one about cultures, we got this. We got to know about culture groups. And in the British culture group, we have English and Northumbrian. And this is something similar. I think it is very similar. I think it is the same situation. Because I have for a long time asked for Northern and Southern English to be separate cultures in the game that will be unified in the course of the game. And I still feel like this is a good idea. I still feel like this is what I want. And it's funny because when this Tinto talk first came out, I was messaged and said, look, this is what you're asking for, right? You want a different culture for north of England. And so now we have Northumbrian. But it's the same situation. It's not English and Northumbrian, because this is making out like Northumbrians are not English. They are. They're just a different type of English. Maybe not to the degree of, Lower and Upper Egyptians here. I don't know. I'm not an Egyptologist of modern or classical or ancient or even this, middle period variety. I'm not, so I don't know. But I do know that the Northumbrians are English, and I think Southern English should be named Southern English. I do hope for a rename when we eventually get around to the UK and Ireland Tinto map review. I hope that is also changed for us too. Other than that, Rogue has been changed. Terrain and Vegetation has had a total review. and then locations have been redrawn in several locations. Minorities are pending. So, maps. Firstly, the country with the area inked in. I will be playing with Terra Incognita, not Terra Incognita, the Wastelands colored in, because I do like it that way. I just don't like that my name is said again over here. Like, if I'm completely surrounding a wasteland, my name should just go over that wasteland. I'm still fine with having something like this where the outline of that wasteland is shown. That's fine. I'm not a problem with that. But then having the name again multiple times is not the vibe I'm looking for, if I'm being honest. When you don't color in the wastelands, you really do get a sense of what part of Egypt is habitable. And it's the same now if you look at a population density map of modern day Egypt. Like, it is 99 or 98% of people live along the River Nile. It's kind of insane. But we can also do a check and just see the comparison here between the two. This is what it used to look like, and this is what it does look like now. So, again, we're seeing these corridors, but other than that, there's not a huge amount of difference. There are some new corridors here added, and also a corridor in the Sinai. It is no longer completely connected. It is like it used to be. Now it is a corridor, which is a very interesting change indeed. Was not one that I was expecting, if I'm being honest. So that is a huge, huge difference. With the new country additions, the Mamluk Sultanate looks a bit less blocky, especially in Syria, where there is a more fragmented rule. Of course, we're talking about the vassals here instead of it just being a single, solid, unified bit of country. Moving on to dynasties, it also impacts the new dynasties. We have Urfa, Al-Fadl, Al-Ali, and Al-Mira, and the Kilis dynasties. No point in really looking at the old one because it's literally just Bahriya the whole way. Locations, though, this is one that I think we need to do a side-by-side comparison of. Firstly, because the aesthetics of the game have changed quite significantly. But also, okay, so this one, with the lighter colors, let's say, this is the new version. This is the old version, a lot more visually impactful. But especially, let's zoom it in a bit, and apologies that I've got stuff popping out. Flipping back and forth between them. Maybe I'll just do the normal size, because that might be a little bit easier to parse. I think the big thing that I'm still seeing, other than, the addition of various extra corridors, which is kind of nice, I am not seeing the amount of extra locations that I was really hoping for. I was really hoping for a lot more, and just at a glance, other than a little bit extra in the Nile Delta, actually quite a bit extra, especially in the west and the center. Actually, the whole Nile Delta has just got so much more. I was expecting more down the length of the Nile, and I'm only seeing ones around here where we're getting extra locations. And I don't know, is that enough? I don't know. Certainly, I would have hoped for a few more. More zoomed in, you can see obviously the new corridors there, which is nice. And then up in the north in Syria, I don't know if there is too much in the way of difference here, but maybe I can find a location map for that, and we can see a bit. I don't see too much in the way of difference. It's sometimes a little harder to see because of the difference in colors, but Urfa and Haran look like they were split, and that's kind of all I can tell. Maybe you spotted something extra there that I didn't. They're skipping the Hijazi locations as they will review them in parallel with the rest of Arabia. However, don't worry if you gave feedback for them in the Levant Tinto maps. They have those references bookmarked and safe. Cool. Provinces. This one is a big deal for me, because there was a thread that I've touched on before. St. Dave had messaged in it. Can you give visual examples of what you want and don't want on the 2D map? And I responded to this. I said, I don't like that wastelands get coloured in on the provinces map mode, and I do have quite a few disagrees because, illiteracy is unfortunately quite a big problem, and people thought that I was meaning the political map mode. because of delusion, I guess. And yes, I am aware that that is actually what they thought because there was a conversation about it. But in the provinces map mode, Wastelands got colored in, and I don't like it. I didn't like that. They can't interact with Wastelands. They shouldn't be marked as if you can. It just adds confusion. I stand by everything that I said here. And now, lo and behold, it turns out the developers seemingly agreed with me. Crazy that, isn't it? Illiteracy is not a problem for them, it seems. But now we have the provinces map mode, and the wastelands are not colored in, and I think that is fantastic. That is makes this so much more legible, like to a frightening degree. And I'm a big fan. I'm an absolute big fan of that. I would say if we can have a look at the old and new. Let me just find the provinces one. This provinces versus this provinces. Which one is more legible to you? Because I think it's obvious. It's very obvious to me. Also, extra provinces in the Delta, which is fantastic as well, of course. Not seeing too much in the way of new things up in Syria, but yeah, just a few minor border changes, I would imagine. But yeah, loving that at all. A few changes in the provinces, especially in Egypt. You may notice there are some locations unconnected from the provinces. That's already reported, so let's not worry about that one. As for areas, those are still getting colored in. I think that's slightly more fine. That's kind of fine. Provinces, though, I will be interacting with them more often than I'm interacting with these areas, especially in areas that I can't colonize, because it's already, got a country with high dev. But that's looking good to me. Terrain now, and I don't know if there's going to be too much in the way of differences here. So we can click through them, and other than this pink climate, which I don't know, maybe just a debug climate, a few changes maybe in the Levant, changing to continental, a few changes to arid and such. Not too much in the way of difference. Going on, though, to the topography. Let's see if any of that has changed. Maybe some more wetlands. It used to be called marsh. A few more hills in the Levant area. But, yeah, generally the same. Like, that wouldn't have changed too terribly much. And then for the vegetation, farmlands and desert. I mean, you're mostly seeing some differences in the Levant again, but again, not that much. There's some more forest than there used to be. Now, this was grasslands, and now it's a lot more woods. I guess that's a pretty difference. And then, that's the end of these kind of maps. We do have a development, which is not a map that we had before, so I can't show you the comparison. But it is nice to see, Alexandria, Cairo, getting the development love that they probably deserve. Damascus as well, of course. Egypt is generally well developed, but I guess if you're comparing it to China, everything's going to look a bit red. Harbors as well, and this is something that is going to change a bit. Harbors are always going to be a thing that is going to be looked at and updated and such. And there are a few comments down below about harbors, especially something like Famagusta, in Cyprus. I've actually gone on holiday there. And Lacosia, I think it's called, is probably going to be updated. There was a comment asking about Alexandria and shouldn't it be a better harbor. And I think it's kind of just on the scale of what they are considering harbors, and it's all about natural features. Alexandria was more of a brute forced harbor rather than one that was naturally suited to being a harbor. So it isn't that great in the game, funnily enough. As for culture, language, and religions, they're skipping them because they have a couple of issues to fix, unfortunately, and they'll do it when they do the Maghreb review. Hopefully, we'll get that sometime in January. Raw materials now, and there will be a few differences. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes with these. but we'll flick back and through between them. You can see the Sinai getting a big black mark of no one goes here now. But differences, just more provinces, meaning that they can be split up more. I can't see too much in the way of... That's not the thing. I can't see too much in the way of changes to actual goods, though. Maybe you can. That's not where I want to be. Here is where I wanted to be. Markets now, also no changes there, but they wanted to show dynamic location naming. So, Alexandria Ili, I think? I don't know, but yeah, new name there. And Damascus al-Sam there. Very cool. That's all for today. Maybe not as meaty as other times, but equally useful, as they'll be able to make further tweaks in parallel with the ongoing Maghreb review, which is more efficient for the window. Next Friday, they'll have the last regular Tinto maps focused on South America. Looking forward to that for sure. And yeah, that is our Tinto maps. I had a look through the comments, and there's not too much. Netflix asking what the next one will be. It'll be in Maghreb. There was a bunch of complaining here, and essentially you can pause and read it if you want. I can't be asked. I read through it. Didn't seem like there was much in the way other than crying and a response to it. The market colors might need a little bit more variation because the palette is a little bit too similar across the place. And then asking why the British Isle feedback is taking so long. It's because St. Dave UK has been juggling a few balls. It is, in fact, a meaty task. And anyway, with that, I am going to bid you adieu. Thank you very much for watching this Tinto map review of Egypt and the Levant. I hope you found something interesting, and the review process is not ended. If there is something in here that you dislike, that you think should be changed, these Tinto map threads are still open. You can leave feedback, and things can still be changed. So things like harbors, things like I want more province or location density, things like that, leave them in the comments on the thread. It will be linked in the description below. And things might still change. But anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow for the Tinto talks. Hopefully we'll have a good one there, and we'll find some more good information to glean about this game that we're all so very excited for. I will see you then. Bye-bye.